Sarah Miller always took the long route home from her night shift at Pete's Diner. The quiet country road helped clear her mind after 8 hours of serving coffee and dealing with truckers. But tonight was different. The air felt strange, like before a storm, but the sky was perfectly clear. As she drove past old Thompson's abandoned barn, a flash of purple light caught her eye. At first, she thought it was teenagers messing around with fireworks, but something felt wrong. The light wasn't flickering like fireworks. It was steady, pulsing like a heartbeat. Sarah slowed her old pickup truck. She shouldn't stop. She knew that. But 20 years of living in Silver Creek had taught her one thing. Weird lights at midnight never meant anything good. As she pulled over, her headlights caught something moving in the shadows. There, pressed against the barn's wooden walls, was a figure. Tall and thin, too thin to be human. Its skin seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, like oil on water. But what made Sarah's heart stop was what the figure was holding. A small bundle, wrapped tightly in something that looked like flowing silver cloth. "Hello," Sarah called out, her voice shaking. "Do you need help?" The figure jerked at the sound, revealing what Sarah first thought was a mask. But as her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she realized with a jolt that this was no mask. The face was real, with large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. They were the color of honey, filled with fear and exhaustion. The bundle in the creature's arms moved, and a small whimper escaped. Sarah's motherly instincts kicked in when she realized it was a child. Alien or not, a baby was a baby. "It's okay," Sarah said softly, holding up her empty hands. "I won't hurt you." The alien mother, Sarah was sure now it was a female, took a hesitant step forward. Her movements were graceful despite her obvious exhaustion. That's when Sarah noticed the dark liquid dripping from the alien's side. Blood, or whatever these beings had instead of blood. "You're hurt," Sarah gasped. "Let me help." The alien mother swayed on her feet. The small bundle in her arms started crying, a sound so similar to a human baby that it made Sarah's chest tighten. The alien tried to speak, making soft musical sounds that Sarah couldn't understand, but the universal language of fear and desperation was clear in her eyes. Suddenly, a deep rumbling filled the air. The alien mother's head snapped up, her eyes wide with terror. She clutched her child tighter and tried to run, but her injured leg gave out. Sarah rushed forward without thinking, catching them both before they hit the ground. The rumbling grew louder. Looking up, Sarah saw something massive moving through the clouds, a dark shape blocking out the stars. The alien mother made a sound like a sob, trying to shield her child with her body. Sarah made a split-second decision. "My truck," she said, pointing. "Come on. You can't stay here." The alien hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Sarah helped her up, surprised by how light she was, like helping a child to walk. They had almost reached the truck when bright beams of light suddenly cut through the darkness from above. "Run." Sarah didn't know if the alien understood the word, but she understood the urgency. They scrambled into the truck, the alien holding her child close. Sarah's hand shook as she started the engine. The lights from above were getting closer. Sarah threw the truck into gear and pressed the gas pedal to the floor. They shot forward, gravel spraying behind them. In the rearview mirror, she could see multiple bright lights now, sweeping the area they'd just left. The alien mother slumped against the door, her breathing shallow. The child in her arms whimpered again, tiny hands reaching up to touch its mother's face. That's when Sarah got her first clear look at the baby. It looked almost human, except for the faint silvery glow of its skin and those same honey-colored eyes. The alien mother looked at Sarah, then down at her child. With trembling hands, she unwrapped part of the silver cloth, revealing a small crystal hanging from a chain. She held it out to Sarah, making urgent musical sounds. Before Sarah could respond, the alien mother's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed, the crystal falling to the truck's floor. The baby started crying. a heartbreaking sound that mixed with the growing roar of whatever was chasing them through the night sky. Sarah pressed the gas pedal harder, her mind racing. She had no idea what she was getting into, but she knew one thing: she couldn't leave a mother and child in danger, no matter what planet they came from. The old basement of Sarah's farmhouse hadn't been used in years, but now it held secrets that could change the world. The alien mother lay unconscious on a makeshift bed of blankets, her silvery skin now pale and dull. Her child, who Sarah had started calling Luna because of her glowing skin, sat quietly beside her mother, those honey-colored eyes watching everything Sarah did. "Your mama's going to be okay," Sarah whispered, though she wasn't sure if that was true. The wound on the alien side was unlike anything she'd seen. It seemed to shift colors, from deep purple to black, then back again. Luna made a soft chirping sound and raised her tiny hand. Sarah gasped as small orbs of light floated from the child's fingers, dancing through the air like fireflies. The lights drifted toward her mother's wound, settling there and glowing brighter. "Well, that's different," Sarah muttered, watching in amazement as the wound's dark colors began to fade slightly. A loud knock upstairs made them all freeze. Luna's lights vanished instantly, and she pressed closer to her mother. Sarah's heart pounded as she crept up the basement stairs and peeked through the small window. Two men in black suits stood at her front door, looking nothing like the usual visitors to Silver Creek. "Ms. Miller," one called out, "we're from the Department of Atmospheric Research. We'd like to ask you some questions about unusual phenomena in your area." Sarah's hand tightened on the crystal the alien mother had given her. Since last night, it had been growing warmer, almost pulsing with energy. She slipped it into her pocket before opening the door. "Can I help you?" she asked, trying to sound normal. The taller agent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We're investigating reports of unusual lights in this area last night. Did you happen to see anything strange?" Before Sarah could answer, a high-pitched sound came from somewhere above them. The agents' heads snapped up, hands reaching inside their jackets. But Sarah saw something they didn't. Luna, now perched invisible near the ceiling, creating tiny distractions to draw them away. "Probably just barn owls," Sarah said quickly. "We get them all the time. And no, I didn't see anything last night. I was working late at the diner." The shorter agent pulled out a strange device that looked like a phone but hummed oddly. "Mind if we take a look around?" "Standard procedure." "Yes, I do mind," Sarah said firmly, channeling her best stern waitress voice. "This is private property, and I've got chores to do. If you want to look around, come back with a warrant." Another sound, this time like breaking glass, came from behind the house. Both agents turned sharply. Sarah caught a glimpse of what looked like a shimmering path in the air. Luna was leading them away. "Check the perimeter," the tall agent ordered. As they hurried around the house, Sarah quietly closed and locked the door. She rushed back to the basement, where she found Luna back beside her mother, looking exhausted from her efforts. But something had changed. The alien mother's eyes were open. "Thank you," the alien said in perfect English, her voice like music, "for protecting my daughter." Sarah stumbled back in shock. You can speak our language." "We learn quickly when we must," the alien mother said, trying to sit up. "But they are coming. More of them, and not just your government agents." "Who's coming?" Sarah asked. "Who are you running from?" The alien mother looked at Luna, who had fallen asleep clutching the silver cloth. "Those who would use my daughter's gifts to wage war across the stars. She is special, even among our kind. The last of her bloodline." A deep rumbling shook the house, the same sound from last night. The alien mother grabbed Sarah's hand, pressing something small and cold into it. Sarah opened her palm to find a tiny silver cube. "If they find us," the alien mother whispered, "this will show you where to take her. There are others like me, hiding on your world. They will help." Sarah looked at the sleeping child, then at the cube in her hand. Outside, She could hear the agents returning. Above, the rumbling grew louder. And in her pocket, the crystal began to pulse faster, like a warning. She had a choice to make, and she had to make it now. Whatever these beings were, whatever was hunting them, Sarah knew she couldn't just walk away. Sometimes destiny didn't ask permission. It just showed up at your door and demanded to be let in. The alien mother washed her face, those honey-colored eyes seeming to look straight into Sarah's soul. "Will you help us?" she asked softly. The rumbling turned into a roar. Sarah had heard of storm cellars, but what she had now was more like a star cellar. The basement hummed with strange energy ever since Luna's mother, who called herself Lyra, had transformed their hiding place. The silver cube had expanded into flowing patterns across the walls, creating what Lyra called a shadow shield, something that made the basement invisible to their hunters' technology. "They're called the Harvesters," Lyra explained, her voice weak as she lay on the makeshift bed. Despite Luna's healing lights, her condition was getting worse. "They collect special beings across the galaxy for their abilities." Luna sat in the corner, creating tiny constellations with her fingertips. Each small light formed a different shape: birds, flowers, and strange creatures Sarah had never seen. But today, the lights kept flickering out, as if the child was losing control. "She's burning up," Sarah said, touching Luna's forehead. The child's silvery skin felt hot as a furnace. "What's happening to her?" Lyra tried to rise but fell back, her own skin turning a darker shade. "It's the atmosphere. Our bodies weren't made for your world. Without proper medication, we'll both." A series of sharp beeps cut through the air. The silver patterns on the walls pulsed red. Above them, heavy footsteps creaked across Sarah's kitchen floor. "They found us," Lyra whispered, terror in her honey-colored eyes. But these weren't the government agents from before. The footsteps were too heavy, too rhythmic. Sarah crept up the stairs and peeked through a crack. What she saw made her blood freeze. Tall figures moved through her house, their bodies covered in what looked like living metal. Their heads were elongated, with multiple eyes that rotated independently. In their hands, they carried weapons that seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs. "Life signs detected below," one of them said in a voice that sounded like grinding gears. "2 Luminian signatures, 1 human." Sarah rushed back down. "We need to move. Now." But Luna had collapsed, her small body shaking. The lights she usually created were now bursting from her involuntarily, filling the room with chaotic patterns. Lyra reached for her daughter, then screamed in pain as her own body began to glow. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, panicked. "The infection," Lyra gasped. "From their weapons. It's spreading." "But Luna, she's different. Her changes are just beginning." The basement door exploded inward. Sarah grabbed Luna, while Lyra pulled herself up, pressing the crystal into Sarah's hand once more. "Run," she commanded. "The crystal. It will show you the way." Before Sarah could protest, Lyra's entire body began to shine with blinding light. The Harvesters burst down the stairs, their weapons raised. But Lyra threw her arms wide, and waves of pure energy pulsed from her body. "Mom!" Luna screamed, the first words Sarah had heard her speak. The child reached for her mother as Sarah pulled her toward the hidden back exit Lyra had shown them. "Lyra!" Lyra shouted in her musical voice. Then her light became so bright that Sarah had to look away. She heard the Harvesters scream, a sound like tearing metal, and felt waves of heat wash over her back as she fled with Luna through the tunnel. They emerged in the woods behind the house, Luna sobbing silently in Sarah's arms. Behind them, Sarah's farmhouse was engulfed in swirling lights, like a miniature aurora borealis had descended from the sky. Then the crystal in Sarah's hand suddenly grew warm, projecting a map into the air. It showed a path leading deep into the mountains, to a place marked with symbols Sarah didn't understand. But she did understand the small dots moving across the map. More Harvesters, closing in from all directions. Luna's skin had begun to change, patterns like starlight moving beneath the surface. Her honey-colored eyes now swirled with different colors, and small sparks of energy crackled around her hands. "Hold on, little star," Sarah whispered, clutching the child close as she began to run. "Your mama gave her life to save you. I'm not letting that be for nothing." Above them, the sky had turned strange colors, and Sarah could hear the deep rumbling of more harvester ships arriving. But she also heard something else. Sirens in the distance, coming closer. It seemed humanity was finally noticing they weren't alone anymore. The crystal pulsed urgently in her hand, and Luna's small fingers gripped her shirt tightly. Sarah took one last look at her home, now surrounded by otherworldly light, then turned and ran deeper into the darkness. Whatever Luna was becoming, whatever war they had stumbled into, there was no turning back now. The night was just beginning, and somewhere in the mountains ahead, others were waiting, if they could reach them in time. The mountain caves weren't on any map, but Sarah knew why now. The crystal had led them to what looked like an ordinary rock wall, until Luna touched it. The stone had simply melted away, revealing a hidden world that made Sarah question everything she thought she knew. "Welcome, Sisters of the Stars," said a voice from the shadows. A figure stepped forward, another alien, but different from Lyra. This one's skin wasn't silver, but seemed to shift like the northern lights, and her eyes were deep purple instead of honey-colored. "I'm Astra," she said, helping Sarah carry the now unconscious Luna. "We felt Lyra's sacrifice. Her light now shines among the ancient ones." The cave opened into a vast chamber that took Sarah's breath away. The ceiling sparkled with thousands of tiny lights, not crystals, but actual stars somehow contained underground. Dozens of aliens moved about, some looking like Lyra, others wildly different. All of them were caring for children who glowed with strange energies. "The nursery of the lost," Astra explained, placing Luna on a bed made of what looked like living moss. "Every child here has a gift. Every mother here died protecting them from the harvesters." Luna's skin had become almost transparent now, galaxies seeming to swirl beneath the surface. "Is she dying?" Sarah asked, her voice breaking. "No," Astra smiled. "She's becoming. Lyra's daughter is special, even among our kind. She's not just changing, she's evolving." Suddenly, alarms echoed through the cave. Red lights pulsed along the walls, and Sarah heard the familiar sound of harvester ships. "They followed us." Sarah gasped. "No." Astra's face darkened. "They followed them." On a large crystal screen, images appeared showing more refugee ships entering Earth's atmosphere. But behind them came massive harvester vessels, their living metal hulls writhing with energy. "They're not just hunting gifted children anymore," Astra said. "They're launching a full invasion. Earth's governments are already responding, but their weapons are useless against harvester technology." Luna stirred, opening her eyes. They weren't just swirling with colors now. They showed entire galaxies spinning in their depths. She reached up, touching Sarah's face with tiny fingers that left trails of starlight in the air. "Save them," Luna whispered, her voice echoing strangely, as if multiple voices spoke at once. "Like you saved me." The chamber shook as explosions rocked the surface. Dust fell from the star-filled ceiling, and the other children began to cry, their various powers flaring in response to their fear. One child's tears turned to floating crystals, while another's sobs created waves of rainbow light. "They're afraid," Luna said, standing up. Her feet didn't quite touch the ground. "They don't understand their gifts yet, but I do now. Mom showed me when she... Sarah knelt beside her. "Your mom was the bravest person I've ever met." Luna smiled, and for a moment, Sarah saw Lyra in her face. Then the child raised her hands, and the air itself seemed to bend around her. The other children stopped crying, watching in awe as Luna began to glow brighter than any of them. "The prophecy," Astra whispered. "The one who would unite the scattered lights." Above them, the cave ceiling became transparent, showing the battle raging in the sky. Earth's military aircraft looked like toys next to the massive harvester ships. But as Luna's power grew, all the children in the chamber began to glow in response, their different abilities harmonizing with hers. "Sarah," Luna said, her voice now ringing with power, "will you stand with us? Will you help me show humanity they don't need to fear the stars?" The crystal in Sarah's hand pulsed one final time, then shattered into dust that swirled around her, covering her in tiny points of light. She looked at her hands, now glowing faintly like the aliens around her. "Together then," Sarah said, taking Luna's small hand in hers. "Earth and stars united." Luna nodded, her galaxy's eyes shining with hope. "Together," she agreed. "Now let me show you what a child of two worlds can really do." The chamber filled with light as Luna's power reached its peak, and Sarah realized this wasn't just about saving one alien child anymore. This was about saving both their worlds, and perhaps changing the very nature of what humanity thought was possible. High above, the harvester ships continued their approach, unaware that in a hidden cave below, a new kind of power was about to be unleashed. The sky above Silver Creek had become a battlefield, but the real war was about to begin from below. Luna floated in the center of the cave chamber, her small body now a vessel of pure starlight. The other children formed a circle around her, their different powers creating a rainbow of energies that spiraled upward. "What you're seeing," Astra explained to Sarah, whose skin still sparkled with crystal dust, "is the convergence. Every 1,000 years, our scattered peoples can unite their gifts. But it's never happened on Earth before, and never with a human child." Sarah finished, understanding finally dawning. Luna wasn't just changing. She was becoming a bridge between two worlds. The crystal dust that had covered Sarah wasn't just for show. She could feel something awakening inside her, like a door opening to a room she never knew existed. Above them, through the now transparent mountain, they watched as 3 massive harvester ships positioned themselves over the town. Their living metal hulls spawned smaller craft that began descending, each carrying troops ready to begin the invasion. Luna's voice echoed through the chamber, but her lips didn't move. "They think our gifts are weapons to be harvested." They never understood. The power was never about destruction. It was about creation. As if responding to her words, the children's powers began to change. The girl whose tears turned to crystals now created complex geometric patterns in the air. A boy who could manipulate shadows started weaving them into solid forms. Each child's gift evolved, becoming something new, something more. "Sarah," Luna called, reaching out her hand. "The crystal chose you. You're part of this now. Help me show them." But before Sarah could reach Luna, the cave ceiling exploded. Harvester troops dropped down, their biomechanical armor more terrifying up close. Their weapons powered up with an ominous hum. "Surrender the prime subject," their leader demanded, multiple eyes fixed on Luna. Her evolution must be harvested for the collective. Luna didn't seem afraid. Instead, she smiled, the same gentle smile her mother had. "You never learned," she said softly. "That's why you keep losing. Power isn't about taking. It's about giving." She raised her hands, and every child in the chamber did the same. Sarah felt her crystal-dusted skin begin to tingle. Energy flowed between them all, not like weapons or shields, but like music made visible. Each child contributed their own note to the symphony of light. The harvesters fired, but their energy beams were caught in the growing web of power. Luna began to sing, an alien lullaby her mother once sang to her, and the hostile energy transformed. Where there had been destructive force, flowers of light bloomed. Where there had been weapons, there were now bridges of pure energy. "Impossible," the harvester leader stumbled back. "The power cannot be. Change. Everything changes," Luna said, her voice carrying the wisdom of stars. "Even you, especially you." The light reached the harvesters, and something extraordinary happened. Their living metal armor began to respond, not to their commands, but to the song of creation filling the air. The metal flowed like water, revealing the beings beneath, not monsters, but lost children themselves, twisted by centuries of harvesting power they didn't understand. Sarah watched in awe as Luna floated toward them, her small hand touching the leader's transformed armor. "You forgot who you were," she said gently. "Let me remind you." The light grew blinding, but Sarah could still see through her crystal-enhanced eyes. The harvesters' true forms emerged, beautiful, ancient beings who had lost their way. Their weapons dissolved into streams of starlight that joined the children's symphony. Through the hole in the mountain, Sarah saw the massive ships above beginning to change too. Their threatening forms softened, organic shapes replacing harsh angles. The smaller craft stopped their attack runs, hanging suspended in the evening sky like new constellations. But Luna wasn't finished. Her power reached further, touching every hidden child, every lost refugee, every frightened human looking up at the sky in fear. Her gift wasn't just transformation. It was understanding. "Earth needs to see," she said, her galaxy's eyes meeting Sarah's. "Not just the stars above, but the stars within. Every person, every being has a light inside them. We just need to help them find it." The chamber filled with a final pulse of power, and Sarah felt the crystal dust become part of her, changing her at the deepest level. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She was becoming something new, along with everyone else in that hidden cave beneath the mountain. Above them, the transformed ships began to pulse with colors never before seen on Earth. The age of hiding was ending. A new age was beginning, one where the light of understanding would shine brighter than any weapon. The harvesters, the restored, as they would now be known, bowed to Luna. "We remember," they said in voices that now sang rather than ground. "We remember what we were meant to be." But this wasn't the end. In many ways, it was just the beginning. Because now, the real challenge would begin, helping humanity understand that the universe wasn't a place to fear, but a family waiting to be reunited. Luna looked at Sarah, both of them glowing with their new shared power. "Ready for the next chapter?" the child asked. Sarah nodded, feeling the crystal's gift humming through her veins. "Together," she said, "we'll write it in starlight." The transformation of Silver Creek began at dawn. What was once a sleepy town had become the first contact point between Earth and the stars, but not in the way anyone had expected. Luna's power had changed everything, and everyone. Sarah stood at the edge of town, her crystal-enhanced vision watching the streams of light that now connected every living thing. Behind her, the cavern children played in the morning sun, their powers no longer hidden but blooming like spring flowers. Luna hovered nearby, weaving patterns of stardust into the air. "They're coming," Luna said softly, her galaxy eyes fixed on the horizon. All of them. Military helicopters appeared first, followed by black government vehicles. But they weren't alone. News vans, curious locals, and even a school bus full of children pulled up to witness what was happening in their small town. "Remember," Astra warned, her aurora skin shifting with concern, "not everyone will understand at first. Fear is." She never finished. A new sound filled the air, a deep musical tone that made the ground tremble. Above them, the transformed harvester ships, now organic vessels of living light, moved into position. But instead of causing panic, their presence brought an unexpected peace. Luna descended to stand beside Sarah, taking her hand. "It's time for my story," she said. "The true one." As government officials approached, Luna began to glow. But this time, her light didn't just shine, it shared memories. Everyone present found themselves experiencing snippets of her journey. Lyra's sacrifice, Sarah's courage, the children's unity, and the harvester's redemption. "My God," whispered a general, his stern face softening as Luna's memories washed over him. "They're not invaders. They're refugees. Teachers." But not everyone was convinced. A group of scientists pushed forward with scanning equipment, and security teams raised their weapons. That's when the crystal dust in Sarah's body responded in a way she never expected. She raised her hands, and the crystalline network that had spread through the town became visible to everyone. It showed how they were all connected: humans, aliens, even the transformed harvesters. Each life glowed with its own unique light, forming a vast, beautiful web. "You see," Luna explained, her voice carrying to all present, "Earth isn't just another planet to us. It's the nexus, the one place in the galaxy where all paths cross, where all gifts can blend. That's why the harvesters wanted it so badly. That's why we protected it." One of the scientists stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "The crystalline network, it's changing our DNA, not harming it, awakening something that was always there." Luna nodded. "Humans weren't meant to be alone in the universe. You were meant to be the bridge." Suddenly, the school bus children broke free from their teachers, running toward the cavern children. Instead of fear, there was recognition. Some of the human children had already begun to show signs of change. Faint glows, small powers awakening. A young boy made a flower grow from concrete. A girl's laugh created bubbles of light. The barrier between human and alien dissolved as children played together, sharing and discovering their gifts. But then the air shifted. New ships appeared, not harvesters, not earth vessels. These were different, ancient. Their surfaces rippled with powers even Luna had never seen. "The Watchers," Astra gasped. "The oldest of our kind. They were supposed to be just legends." The new ships descended, and beings of pure energy emerged. They took physical form as they touched the ground. Tall, majestic creatures with forms that seemed to shift between light and matter. Luna stepped forward, unafraid. One of the Watchers knelt before her, its voice like music given words. "The prophecy is fulfilled," it said. "The bridge between worlds is built. But now comes the greatest challenge." Sarah felt the crystal dust in her body resonating with these ancient beings. She understood what they meant. Changing was easy compared to what came next. Living together, growing together, becoming something entirely new while keeping what made each of them unique. The Watcher turned to the gathered crowd. Humans, transformed harvesters, refugee children, and soldiers all watching in awe. "Your world stands at a crossroads," it announced. "What you choose next will echo across galaxies." Luna squeezed Sarah's hand and stepped forward. She was no longer just a refugee child, but a symbol of what could be. The galaxy in her eyes held not just stars now, but hope. "We choose together," Luna declared, her voice carrying the strength of her mother, the wisdom of the stars, and the simple truth of a child. Always together. The crystal dust in Sarah sparkled in agreement, and around them the first light of a new age began to dawn, not just for Silver Creek, not just for Earth, but for all the scattered children of the stars who had finally found their way home. Above them, more ships appeared in the brightening sky, carrying more refugees, more gifts, more possibilities. The last barriers between worlds were falling, and something beautiful was being born in their place. The story wasn't ending. It was transforming, just like they all were. 5 years after the day the stars changed, Sarah stood on the hill overlooking what used to be Silver Creek. The town had become something entirely new, a place where crystal spires grew alongside old farmhouses, where human children went to school with beings from across the galaxy, where the barriers between Earth and stars had melted away like morning mist. Luna, now merely a teenager, no longer needed to float. She danced through the air naturally, her body a symphony of starlight and human grace. The galaxies in her eyes had grown more complex, showing not just stars but the countless connections between all living things. "They're graduating today," Luna said, her voice carrying echoes of distant songs. "The first class of the Unified Academy." Below them, in what used to be the town square, hundreds of beings gathered. Human children sat beside transformed harvesters' offspring, their bodies glowing with newly awakened powers. Refugee children who had once hidden in mountain caves now proudly displayed their gifts. Even the Watchers were there, their energy forms shimmering with approval. "Your mother would be proud," Sarah said softly, the crystal dust in her body chiming in harmony with Luna's presence. Over the years, Sarah had become something new herself, not quite human anymore, but not fully starborn either. The bridge, like so many others who had chosen to embrace the change. Luna touched a pendant around her neck, the last piece of the silver cloth her mother had wrapped her in. "She is proud," Luna replied. "The stars remember, and so they never truly leave us." The graduation ceremony began, but it was unlike any Earth had seen before. Each student demonstrated not just their powers, but how they had learned to blend them with others. Human technology merged with alien gifts, creating something entirely new. A young human girl created holographic butterflies that carried actual stardust. A restored child, as the transformed harvesters' children were now known, used their living metal heritage to build bridges of light between minds. Each demonstration showed how far they'd come from the days of fear and hiding. Suddenly, Luna stiffened, her eyes widened, seeing something beyond normal sight. "Sarah, look." The sky above them began to ripple, not with ships or threats, but with pure light. The Watchers rose as one, their forms brightening in recognition. "The Great Confluence," one of them announced. "It happens only once in 1,000 generations, the moment when all paths align." The light descended, touching everyone present. Sarah felt the crystal dust in her body singing, resonating with frequencies she'd never felt before. Luna's power flared in response, but instead of just her usual starlight, she began to emanate waves of pure possibility. Every being in the square began to glow. Humans, aliens, hybrids, each with their own unique light, but all somehow part of the same spectrum. The barriers between species, between powers, between past and future, became transparent. In that moment, they all saw it, the true purpose of Earth's transformation. It wasn't just about humans learning to accept aliens or aliens finding a home. It was about the universe itself evolving, using their little planet as the seed of something unprecedented. Luna raised her hands, and every graduate followed suit. The light they created together shot upward, a beacon that could be seen from galaxies away. But this wasn't a signal for help or a warning. It was an invitation. "Today," Luna announced, her voice carrying the wisdom of stars and the warmth of humanity, "we're not just graduating students. We're graduating as a species, all of us together. The universe isn't divided anymore. The light that flows through human veins is the same light that burns in distant suns." The crystal dust across the town formed patterns that matched the constellations above, not reflecting them, but completing them. Earth wasn't just reaching for the stars anymore. It had become part of them. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks, each one catching the light like tiny prisms. She remembered the scared waitress she'd been, that night when she found an alien mother and child hiding in a barn. How far they'd all come. How far they'd yet to go. Luna turned to her, smiling that smile that still held echoes of Lyra. "Ready for the next adventure?" she asked. Sarah looked out at their transformed world, at the children who glowed with star stuff, at the bridges built between species, at the endless possibilities stretching out before them. The crystal dust in her blood hummed with excitement for whatever came next. "Together," Sarah replied, taking Luna's hand. Above them, new lights appeared in the sky. More visitors, more refugees, more friends arriving to join Earth's great experiment in unity. Luna squeezed her hand, and for a moment, Sarah saw through her eyes, saw the countless threads of light connecting every living thing, saw the pattern of past and future weaving together into something beautiful and new, saw how their small story had become part of the greatest story ever told. Together, Luna agreed, as the light of a new age dawned around them. Always together. And so, what began with a frightened alien child hiding in a barn became the first chapter in humanity's real journey to the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as family finally finding its way home. The end was just another beginning, and the stars themselves leaned down to watch what would happen next.